This is probably going to be the last update that I do about this new workshop because right now it's mostly done. This weekend I installed the windows, the aircon went in last week, I'll talk about those in a second, but for all intents and purposes it's finished, ready to go for me to start working in it. The only other thing that needs to be taken care of is the electrics in here and obviously the lights, as you can see, but for the most part it's still workable. I mean, I can still run extension cords and hang lights in here, so I can still use it. But other than that, it's a workshop now. This is the new AC unit that I had installed last weekend. It's a Fujitsu and it's an 8.5 kilowatts or 30,000 BTU system. I'm not going to tell you all the bells and whistles. I'm not an AC guy, so I don't know how amazing it is, you know, in detail. But what I will say is that I wanted a system that was big enough to cool this room, and at 8.5 kilowatts, the installer has assured me that it is more than capable. And the other thing was that I wanted a quiet unit, and I cannot describe just how quiet this thing is. It's running at the moment. I'm getting a really nice blast of cool air on my face, and you probably cannot even hear it on the microphone from there. The other thing is that the compressor on the other side is just as quiet. It's actually got a low noise function that you can use. So it's amazing. The compressor is actually underneath the house, but still technically outside. It's out of the weather, but it's outside in terms of the airflow. So noise isn't really too much of an issue. It's not going to affect my filming in the shop. But I still wanted it as quiet as possible because it is attached to this wall, and this wall is attached to the house. And so that noise often translates into vibrations, and that makes its way up the house. So that's why I really wanted it to be as quiet as possible. So while that's running out there, you're not going to be able to hear it upstairs in the bedroom. One of the concerns with an AC like this in a woodworking shop is dust, because obviously this is filtering the air that's in here, so all the dust particles are going to go through that. So the guy who installed it said you should be alright. I mean, obviously the better your dust extraction, the better. But he said you should be right. You'll probably just have to change or clean the filters more often, and you might need to have a routine checkup where they come in and they actually clean the whole system. You might need to have that maybe twice a year. So it's just going to be more than it would in, you know, your normal bedroom or lounge, which is fine. I'm not too concerned about that. I was expecting it to be a lot more rigorous. There would need to be a lot more maintenance visits. So doing it twice a year, going on what he said, I'm pretty okay with that. But that's all I'm going to say about the aircon for now, because I've only just had this installed. I'm not sure how it's working. I'm obviously not too concerned about the brand. I know nothing about different AC brands, but my main concern and the main thing that I want to check out with, and this is what I will report back to you guys on, is how it lasts, how it handles the dust in this environment. I installed these windows yesterday, and this was the first time that I've ever installed windows into concrete block. Actually, this is the first time I've ever installed any windows. And when they came and took the measurements, I talked to the guy and he said, they're pretty simple to install. If you're a fairly handy guy, it's not too much trouble. You just stick it in place, screw it in, and off you go. They arrived a couple days ago, and I took a while before actually going ahead because I wasn't sure, you know, it's as much as he said it was easy. Like, I thought, I've never done this before. I want to make sure I put them in right. Got the first one in and then realized how straightforward it is, and I've got to say it's one of the easier jobs that I've done. I put in the first one on Saturday, and then yesterday, Sunday, I put in the other three. It was that quick. I did it all in the morning. They're just screwed in at the moment. I haven't actually sealed them yet. I just wanted to make sure that the fit was right and everything looked good. They are a 10 millimeter or 10.38 millimeter laminated glass, so it's a bit thicker than your standard glass. And again, this was all about sound. That's my main concern, is sound leaking out. Obviously, when you've got concrete walls, the windows are going to be your weak point. So they're a very thick glass. The actual frame that they come in is not a stock frame either. It's bigger than your normal frame, because there's a lot of acoustic seals that are going on in this. So this window is designed with sound in mind. The glass, it's funny when you think about the way glass used to be made and the way it used to sound. This doesn't even feel like glass. It doesn't sound like glass when you tap on it. It feels like acrylic, and I think that's the laminate's in between the two sheets, but it's so incredibly solid. As I say, I still haven't sealed them in, and that's really going to bring them into their own. So all of this around here needs to be sealed up, and you use a silicone glue, and that will really seal in, because right now I can see there's probably about a 2mm gap around the frame. So that'll really seal it all up and create that soundproof window that I want. There's a lot of different styles and types of windows that you can get, and I went for what's called an awning type window. So that's got the rotating chain that as you turn, the window opens. The other window that I thought of going with, which is the more common window, is a sliding window, but this has much better soundproofing properties, and it's because as you tighten it up, you can really crank on that seal, and now it's made a much more solid seal than a sliding window ever will be able to. When I got quoted on these windows, they give you the R value, which is it's the amount of sound transmission through the window, and the higher the value, the better, and this was a fair bit higher than the sliding window version. I should probably clarify what I mean by the shop is done. Right now the shop is usable, I can start getting my tools in, it's secure enough to have all of them in here, and I can start working. The shop is by no means finished. There's still gaps that I need to plug, there are still bits of trim that I need to finish, there's still a lot to do, but I can finally get back to actually woodworking. So for me, this is a massive milestone. But for the next week, all I'm going to be worrying about is cleaning up down here, getting my tools down, setting them up in the best way I think will work, although I'm pretty sure that's all going to change as soon as I start using the shop. So I better get started. It's the end of the day and I finished getting all the tools into the shop. Well, I've still got a couple of things upstairs, but all the big tools are set up. You can see behind me, I've got the drill press, then the miter saw, the jointer is over there, and I've got the shelf where I'm going to put all my tools, and then here in the center is my workbench combination. So right now everything's set up, ready to go. I can start working, which is cool. As I say, I've still got a couple of the hand tools upstairs which I need to bring down, and there's probably a couple more of those boxes. I've got most of them down, but there's still a few more here and there. I've set the shop up in the way that I think is going to be the most user-friendly. I mean, I don't have enough tools that I've got to think too hard about production lines and that sort of thing. I've got enough space that I can play around with it quite a bit, which is nice. So I've got the jointer over there, enough space on both sides of it to run timber through. The miter saw, again, enough space on either side. I don't think I'm going to need more than that. And then the drill press, I've just kept it away from the corner again so I can put long stuff. The drill press and the jointer are on wheels so they can be moved around fairly easy, which is cool. The compressor over there in the corner, also on wheels, so that's not a problem. Eventually for the miter saw, I will make a separate stand on wheels, and that way whenever I just feel like things aren't working or I need to make a change, I can just switch them around. So it's, it'll be a lot easier than having to drag and push cabinets around. So the next thing for me to do is, in these joist bays up here, there's gaps, and I need to plug those gaps with something. So I've got some timber boards that I'm going to use to go in there, and it's basically just cutting a piece, fitting it in, nailing it off, moving on to the next one. I've got to do everything on this side, and then if I swing around, I've got to do the same thing on this side. On the long bearers over there, I've got to put basically long 2x4s in the corners where the bearer meets the concrete, because there is a small gap. So if I put in a 2x4, then I can come in from underneath with some spray foam and that'll plug it up. And then at that stage, I'll then call this done. I might eventually do the ceiling, but that's going to depend on how bad the noise is upstairs. I work here by myself during the day, so if there's any noise upstairs, that's not really an issue for anyone because there's no one there. But my concern is is that the noise is just going to bleed out of the ceiling and out of the house because the house isn't very well insulated. So I might need to address that, but we'll see how that goes later. But other than that, everything is done, ready to go. The shop is set up, ready for me to start making something. So now I've just got to work out what I want to make first.